The sun had just set over the horizon, casting a golden hue across Earth's vast oceans. Everything seemed peaceful, but as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, something strange began to happen. A loud hum filled the air, and suddenly, without warning, the sky darkened. It was as though the night had fallen early. A deep shadow loomed over the earth, and the peaceful world was plunged into chaos. People looked up in terror, their eyes wide in disbelief. Massive, otherworldly ships, gleaming and terrifying, appeared out of thin air. The ships weren't just large. They were enormous, colossal structures that stretched across the sky, blocking out the stars like a dark storm cloud. Their sleek surfaces shimmered with energy shields that flickered in the night, making them seem almost invisible as they materialized. At first, people didn't know what to think. Were these just some unknown phenomenon? Maybe a weather disturbance or an illusion? But the truth soon became clear. These were no ordinary objects. The Galactic Empire had arrived. In an instant, panic spread across the globe. Alarms blared from every city, the sound of sirens echoing through the streets. People rushed to shelters, governments scrambled to act, and military forces took their positions, but it was clear that this was unlike anything humanity had ever faced. The ships were not just here for a visit. They had a purpose, a mission. The invading aliens were here for one thing: Earth's ocean waters. The oceans, covering more than 70% of the planet's surface, were a treasure trove of resources the Empire had been watching for years. Earth's water was unlike any other, and the aliens knew that with their advanced technology, they could harvest the oceans and use them to fuel their empire's growing need for energy. The time had come to claim what they believed was rightfully theirs. As the world held its breath, waiting for any signs of communication or negotiation, a message crackled through every broadcast station on Earth. It was an emergency transmission, the voice of the highest-ranking defense official in the planet's military. General Lorna Hayes, the woman who had dedicated her life to protecting Earth, appeared on every screen. Her face was stern, but there was no hiding the fear in her eyes. She spoke clearly, her voice steady but firm. "We do not know who you are or where you come from, but you will not take our oceans. Leave now, or you will regret it." Her words echoed across the globe, and for a moment, it felt like the world itself had stopped. People hoped that the aliens would listen, that they would retreat and spare humanity from the inevitable conflict. But it didn't take long for the alien fleet to make their intentions clear. A burst of static filled the airwaves, followed by the eerie sound of an unknown language, and then came the chilling message. It was short, but powerful. "We are the Galactic Empire. You are weak. Your oceans will be ours." The response from the Empire was immediate. The ships began lowering toward the Earth's oceans, their weapons powering up with bright, dangerous energy. The plan was in motion. Humanity's warning had been ignored, and the Earth was about to face the first test of its survival. But there was one thing that the Galactic Empire didn't account for. Humanity wasn't going to back down that easily. Enter Captain Jason Hunter, the leader of Earth's most elite defense unit, a man who, despite the overwhelming odds, refused to give up. Captain Hunter stood tall, his face calm yet full of determination as he stared at the massive ships descending upon the world. He was no superhero, no superhuman with powers beyond anyone else. He was just an ordinary man, an experienced soldier, an expert strategist, and more than anything, a fighter who loved his planet and would do anything to protect it. As Earth's highest military forces mobilized, Captain Hunter gathered his team. They weren't the strongest, the richest, or the most technologically advanced. But they had one thing that made them different: their will to fight, to defend their home no matter the cost. Jason Hunter's crew consisted of soldiers, engineers, and scientists, all ordinary people who had been thrust into an extraordinary situation. Hunter's crew was diverse, each member bringing their own unique skills to the table. There was Lieutenant Sarah Miller, a brilliant engineer who had worked on the most advanced weaponry Earth had ever developed. Then there was Sergeant Thomas Tommy Blackwell, a seasoned veteran whose sharp tactical mind and experience in the field made him invaluable in combat situations. And last, but certainly not least, Dr. Anna Reyes, a scientist who had spent her life studying the oceans and the life within them, now forced to apply her knowledge in ways she never imagined. But despite their expertise and their courage, the crew knew the odds were stacked against them. The Galactic Empire's technology was far beyond anything humanity had ever dreamed of. The aliens controlled the power to cloak their ships, to create advanced AI systems capable of predicting human movements, and their weapons were powerful enough to annihilate entire cities with a single strike. Earth's defense forces were no match for this technological might. However, there was something the aliens didn't understand: humanity's ability to survive. Earth had fought wars, faced natural disasters, and overcome countless obstacles throughout history. The human spirit was not easily broken. If the Empire wanted to take Earth's oceans, they would have to face a force far stronger than advanced weaponry or AI. They would have to face the will of humanity. Captain Hunter and his crew began making plans. They knew that they couldn't simply fight the aliens head-on. They needed a strategy, a way to outsmart them. And as they gathered around the strategy table, they realized something even more critical. They couldn't do this alone. They needed the world to stand with them. The defense of Earth wasn't just about military might. It was about unity. It was about every person, every man, woman, and child, coming together to fight for their planet. But time was running out. The Galactic Empire's fleet was getting closer, and their plan to extract Earth's oceans was already in motion. With each passing second, humanity's chance to fight back grew slimmer. Yet Captain Hunter and his team knew one thing for sure: they weren't going down without a fight. As the tension continued to rise, with Earth's fate hanging in the balance, the team of underdogs began preparing for war. Their plan wasn't just about weapons or technology. It was about outthinking the Empire, using their ingenuity, their courage, and their unity to turn the tide in the battle for Earth's survival. It was a fight against not just the Empire, but against the idea that humanity was weak and helpless. In the end, this story wouldn't just be about defeating an alien force. It would be about proving that no matter how advanced the enemy, humanity's heart and spirit could never be defeated. And so, with their hearts full of determination, Captain Hunter and his crew set out to warn the Empire. Run now, or prepare to face the might of humanity. It was a declaration of war, and for the first time, humanity was ready to fight for their future. The sun had barely begun to rise over Earth when the next wave of terror began. The Galactic Empire was relentless. After their initial warning had been ignored, the aliens didn't hesitate to show just how serious they were. The world was still reeling from the sight of their enormous ships looming over the oceans, but things were about to escalate even further. Earth's defense systems were no match for the alien fleet, and humanity's fate was teetering on the edge of despair. The Empire had one simple demand: Earth's oceans must be surrendered. The message was clear, and it echoed through every communication channel on the planet. The aliens declared that they would begin extracting Earth's precious water immediately. The world's most valuable resource was now in their grasp, and they made it clear that any resistance would be met with swift and devastating force. The Galactic Empire, with their advanced technology and AI-driven machines, mocked humanity's attempts at resistance. They didn't see Earth as a real threat. To them, humans were nothing more than a primitive species, unworthy of standing in their way. The aliens had come to claim what they wanted, and they would stop at nothing to get it. From the massive warships hovering above, a swarm of robot drones descended like locusts. These machines, with their gleaming metal bodies and cold, calculating eyes, were the forefront of the Empire's operation. They were built for one thing: extraction. They had been designed to strip the oceans clean, gathering the precious water without hesitation, without mercy. The drones began their work immediately, drilling into the oceans and siphoning vast amounts of water into their massive tanks. Their movements were methodical, efficient, and terrifying. To the aliens, this was a simple operation. They believed that humanity would fold, that they would surrender their oceans without a fight. After all, what could a primitive planet like Earth do against an empire that spanned the stars? The empire had the technology, the firepower, and the AI that could calculate every move before humanity even had a chance to react. The aliens were confident that they had already won, but there was one thing they hadn't accounted for: the human spirit. As the drones worked tirelessly, a sense of hopelessness began to settle in among the Earth's leaders. The world was watching as the oceans began to shrink, and the very thing that made Earth unique, its vast, life-sustaining waters, was being drained away. Yet, in the midst of this despair, there was a flicker of hope. It wasn't in technology, and it wasn't in weapons. It was in something far more powerful: humanity's will to survive. Captain Jason Hunter stood before his team, his eyes fixed on the screen showing the destruction unfolding across Earth's oceans. The reality of the situation hit him hard. The Empire wasn't just an enemy. They were an unstoppable force, their technology leagues ahead of anything humanity had. Yet, in his heart, Hunter knew something the Empire didn't. The human will was far more powerful than any machine. As the drones continued their extraction, Hunter turned to his crew. His voice was calm, but the determination in his eyes spoke volumes. "We may not have the firepower they do," he said, "but we have something they don't: each other and the will to fight for our home. We're not giving up. Not now. Not ever." His words sparked something in the crew. They were ordinary people, soldiers, scientists, engineers. None of them had faced an enemy like this before, but they all shared a deep love for their planet, and they all understood the stakes. If they didn't act now, Earth's oceans, everything that made their world unique, would be lost forever. The team gathered in the command room, poring over maps and battle strategies. Captain Hunter, Lieutenant Miller, Sergeant Blackwell, and Dr. Rice all had their own unique perspectives, but they shared one common goal: to stop the Galactic Empire, no matter the cost. In the midst of their planning, a young soldier named Bonner stepped forward. Bonner was new to the team, having joined only months before the invasion. He had never seen combat on this scale, but there was a fire in his eyes that spoke of his commitment to the cause. He wasn't just fighting for Earth, he was fighting for something much more personal. "I've always dreamed of a world where Earth isn't under the threat of alien oppression," Bonner confessed, his voice raw with emotion. "When I was a kid, I used to imagine the day when we'd stand up and say enough is enough. Today's that day. We can't let them take what's ours." Bonner's words resonated with everyone in the room. They were more than just a military unit. They were a family, and their bond was growing stronger with every passing moment. Each of them had their own reasons for fighting, and each of them had something they were willing to sacrifice. They weren't just protecting their planet. They were protecting everything they loved. Hunter's mind raced as he reflected on his own reasons for fighting. His wife, Claire, and their young son, Adam, were the most important people in his life. The thought of losing them, of watching Earth fall to the Empire, was unbearable. He had seen the destruction the aliens had caused on other worlds, and he couldn't allow that to happen to the people he loved. He clenched his fists, the memory of his family driving him forward. "I'll never let them take Earth," he said, his voice filled with quiet resolve. "We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every single person on this planet. Our children, our future. We can't lose." The team fell silent for a moment, each of them lost in their thoughts. For a brief second, it felt as though the weight of the world was on their shoulders. The Empire's technological superiority seemed impossible to overcome. But despite the odds, they were ready to fight, ready to make a stand. Lieutenant Miller broke the silence. "We can't waste any more time. We need a plan. If we don't do something soon, they'll have all the water they need. And once they've taken our oceans, they'll take everything else." Sergeant Blackwell, who had fought in countless battles, nodded in agreement. We need to hit them hard, but we can't just rush in blindly. We need to outsmart them. We know their drones, their ships. Let's use that against them. Dr. Rice, the scientist, added, we need to find a way to disrupt their technology. I know it's a long shot, but if we can somehow jam their eye, it might give us the upper hand. As the team discussed their options, a sense of unity settled over them. The odds were stacked against them, but they weren't going to back down. They were going to fight for their planet and for the future of humanity. The drones continued to extract water, their metal claws plunging deep into the ocean, unaware of the human resistance that was quietly gathering strength beneath them. Earth wasn't giving up. Not now. Not ever. As the first waves of the invasion raged on, Captain Hunter's voice rang out in the command room, steady and unwavering. This is just the beginning. We may be outnumbered, but we'll never be outwilled. We'll fight until the last drop of water is left. And with that, the team set their sights on the impossible. They had a long road ahead of them, but they had something that the Empire didn't: the heart of humanity. The war for Earth's oceans was just beginning, and the humans weren't going down without a fight. The Earth was now under full-scale invasion, and every minute counted. The first devastating strike from the Galactic Empire had shattered Earth's defenses, leaving cities in ruins. The alien warships were relentless, their powerful drones and robots sweeping across the globe, extracting Earth's precious oceans. The loss of water was catastrophic, but humanity refused to give up without a fight. In the shadows, humanity's last hope was beginning to take shape. While the rest of the world watched helplessly, a group of Earth's finest minds and soldiers worked tirelessly in secret to develop a weapon that could change the tide of the war: cloaking technology. This technology, still in its early stages, had the potential to give humanity a fighting chance. For years, Earth scientists had studied the technology of the Galactic Empire, trying to find a way to reverse engineer their advanced systems. Now, in a hidden facility far from the alien forces, they were on the brink of a breakthrough. Captain Jason Hunter stood at the center of the operation, overseeing the development of the cloaking devices. He knew that time was running out, and the stakes had never been higher. If they could make their ships invisible to the Empire's all-seeing AI and robot drones, they could launch a surprise counterattack. It was their only chance. The humans worked around the clock, testing various prototypes and making adjustments with each failure. The cloaking technology was not perfect, but it had to work. If they couldn't hide their fleet, there was no hope left. Captain Hunter was determined to make it succeed. He spent long hours with his engineers, analyzing data, pushing them to work faster and smarter. They knew that the longer they waited, the more water the Empire would drain from the oceans. They could not afford to lose any more time. At the same time, the Galactic Empire showed no signs of slowing down. Their warships remained high in the atmosphere, sending down waves of drones and robots to continue the extraction process. The Empire's AI, powered by an intelligence beyond anything humans had ever seen, was the key to their success. This AI could predict human movements before they even made them, making the aliens nearly invincible. They seemed unstoppable, their robotics capable of taking on entire armies. But the Empire's superiority was not without flaws. While their technology was undeniably advanced, it lacked the one thing that humans had in abundance: creativity. The Empire relied on precise calculations and predictions, but humans had a natural ability to adapt, to think on their feet when the plan was not working. And this was something that Captain Hunter was counting on. Back at the facility, the first successful test of the cloaking device was met with a wave of relief. The prototype ship was invisible to the Empire's sensors, a true feat of engineering. It wasn't perfect, but it would do for now. With this technology, humanity could now approach the alien warships undetected. But they needed more time to refine it, to ensure it would be able to protect their entire fleet. However, time was a luxury they no longer had. The Empire's forces were closing in, their drones relentlessly pounding Earth's cities, destroying everything in their path. In the face of overwhelming odds, Captain Hunter knew that he had to act immediately. If they didn't strike soon, the Earth would be lost forever. Hunter called a meeting with his team. "It's time," he said, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "We're launching the counterattack tonight. We'll use the cloaking technology to hit behind their lines. We'll hit them where they least expect it." The team nodded, understanding the gravity of the mission. They had trained for moments like this, but nothing could prepare them for the chaos that was about to unfold. The soldiers were ready, but they knew that the fight ahead would be nothing short of brutal. The plan was simple. A small strike force would infiltrate one of the Empire's largest warships, cripple it from within, and send a message to the invaders that humanity would not surrender. The soldiers would use the cloaked ships to approach the warship undetected, sneaking past the Empire's defense systems. Once they were inside, they would plant explosives, disable the ship's systems, and create a diversion to allow the rest of Earth's fleet to launch an all-out attack. Bonner, the young soldier who had become an unexpected hero in the fight for Earth, was chosen to lead the infiltration mission. He had grown into a skilled and resourceful soldier, and his determination to protect Earth was unwavering. As he prepared for the operation, he couldn't help but think of his family, back home, waiting for him. He had no idea if he would ever see them again, but he knew that this was his chance to make a difference. As Bonner and his team approached the cloaked ships, the tension in the air was thick. The humans had never attempted anything like this before, and the risks were enormous. If they were discovered, the Empire would crush them without mercy. But they had no choice. This was their last hope. The cloaked ships moved through the skies like shadows, invisible to the Empire's sensors. The humans were on the move, and they had a small window of opportunity to strike. As they approached the warship, the enormous vessel loomed in front of them, its surface covered in shimmering metal and glowing lights. The scale of the Empire's power was mind-boggling, but the humans were not intimidated. They were determined to fight. Inside the warship, chaos was already beginning. Bonner and his team infiltrated the ship, moving silently through the halls, their weapons ready. The ship was a labyrinth, with towering corridors and towering doors. The group moved quickly, using the cloaking technology to avoid detection by the robot sentries patrolling the halls. The team's nerves were on edge, every sound amplified in the silence. They could hear the whir of the robot drones moving around them, the hum of the ship's engines reverberating in the walls. The tension was unbearable. Every step they took brought them closer to their goal, but also closer to being discovered. Finally, they reached the central control room, where the main systems of the warship were located. Bonner motioned for his team to plant the explosives while he kept watch. The air was thick with anticipation as the countdown began. The explosives were set, and soon the ship would be in disarray. But just as they were about to finish the mission, a loud alarm sounded throughout the warship. They had been discovered. The robots and drones began pouring into the room, their cold, metallic eyes glowing with malice. The humans fought back with everything they had, but the robots were powerful and relentless. The battle raged on in a frenzy of gunfire and sparks. Bonner and his team fought with the fury of those who had nothing left to lose. In the chaos of the fight, Bonner's heart raced. They had to escape, or the mission would fail. He and his team fought their way out of the warship, narrowly avoiding death at every turn. The explosives were triggered, and the warship began to tremble. The blast ripped through the ship's core, sending shockwaves through the Empire's forces. The humans had struck a blow, and it was one that the Empire would not soon forget. The air was tense, filled with the electric hum of anticipation. Humanity's fleet, though smaller and vastly outclassed by the might of the Galactic Empire, was ready to strike. Captain Jason Hunter knew this was their only chance. If they didn't take the fight to the Empire now, they might never get another shot. The humans had worked hard to prepare, using their cloaking technology to conceal their fleet's movements. But the real test had finally arrived. The enemy's flagship, a massive, imposing warship, floated high above the Earth, its immense size almost swallowing the sky. The ship was surrounded by smaller vessels, all part of the Empire's overwhelming force. The humans' mission was simple: disable the Empire's cloaking device. If they could accomplish that, they might stand a chance in this battle. If they failed, the Empire would be able to strike without being seen, and humanity would be doomed. As the human ships emerged from their cloaking field, they were met with the full force of the Empire's arsenal. The flagship fired its laser cannons, and smaller drones began swarming toward the humans, each one as relentless and deadly as the next. The air was filled with explosions, fireballs illuminating the dark expanse of space, and the deafening noise of weapons being fired. Humanity was in for the fight of their lives. Captain Hunter barked orders, guiding his fleet through the chaos. His heart raced as he saw the first few of his ships take hits from the Empire's weapons, their hulls bursting apart in violent flashes. But they pressed on, determined not to back down. The first wave of attacks was over, and now the real battle began. With their ships barely holding together, the humans launched a direct assault on the flagship. The goal was simple: disable the cloaking device, expose the flagship to Earth's forces, and then hit it with everything they had. The human ships, though cloaked for the most part, were now coming into full view. Explosions rocked the air as lasers sliced through space, the bright beams of light flashing against the dark backdrop of the universe. Captain Hunter's ship, the Vanguard, maneuvered through the battle like a wisp of smoke, dodging incoming fire and returning shots of their own. The ship's engines screamed as they pushed it to the limit, and the crew inside worked in perfect harmony, using their resourcefulness and unyielding will to hold the line. The battle quickly escalated, with both sides launching volleys of fire at each other. The Empire retaliated with everything they had, their warships unleashing waves of laser fire and missiles, turning space into a deadly, chaotic battlefield. The humans fought back valiantly, using their cloaking technology to remain hidden as much as possible. But the Empire was relentless, and their superior numbers made it hard to keep up. Captain Hunter felt the weight of the moment. He had no illusions about the odds stacked against them, but he wasn't about to give up. Every decision mattered, every second counted. He had to keep pushing. "Target the cloaking device," he ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "We disable it, we have a chance." His words were met with a surge of determination from his crew. They knew what was at stake. The humans had always been the underdogs in this war, but this battle would prove whether their ingenuity and willpower could match the Empire's advanced technology. The Vanguard led the charge, weaving in and out of the laser beams and missiles, moving at breakneck speed. The other ships followed, their cloaks flickering in and out as they closed in on the Empire's flagship. It wasn't going to be easy. The flagship's defenses were far more advanced than anything the humans had ever encountered, but they had no choice but to try. Then it happened. A direct hit from one of the Empire's orbital bombardments sent the Vanguard tumbling through space, its hull buckling under the pressure. The ship was heavily damaged, its engines flickering and sparks flying from the control panel. Captain Hunter gritted his teeth, keeping his focus. "Hold it together," he shouted to his crew. "We're not done yet." But just as things seemed to settle, the flagship revealed its most devastating weapon. The Empire had activated its cloaking system, making the massive warship invisible to the human fleet. It was a devastating move, and for a moment, the humans were left blind. The flagship began its counterattack, launching a series of missiles that exploded in a fiery storm of debris, engulfing anything in its path. For a brief moment, it seemed as though all hope was lost. But Captain Hunter wasn't ready to give up. "Prepare for manual targeting," he ordered. "We can still hit them. Focus on their engines, now." With his heart pounding, Captain Hunter's crew rallied. The Vanguard darted into the chaotic battlefield, weaving through enemy fire as they focused on the Empire's engines, the heart of the warship's power. The humans' fleet was outnumbered and outclassed, but they had something the Empire didn't: the will to fight. The clash continued at a breakneck pace. Explosions echoed through the cold void of space, and laser beams sliced through the darkness. The human ships, though fewer in number, fought with everything they had. Each shot, each maneuver, was made with the hope that they could turn the tide of battle in their favor. But as the battle raged on, tragedy struck. Bonner, the young soldier who had become a symbol of human resolve, was struck down by enemy fire. His body crumpled in the cockpit of his fighter ship, and the crew could do nothing but watch in horror. He had been one of the first to volunteer for the infiltration mission, the first to stand up when humanity needed him most. "Bonner," Captain Hunter shouted, his voice breaking. But there was no response. The pain of losing a comrade in the midst of battle was overwhelming, and it left the crew shaken. In the middle of the chaos, Bonner's voice came through the comms, faint but clear. "Keep fighting. For Earth." His final words brought a surge of strength to the crew. They would not let his death be in vain. With renewed determination, the humans pressed on, pushing back against the Empire's forces. The sight of Bonner's sacrifice galvanized the crew, and they fought harder than ever. The battle continued to rage, each side refusing to back down, but the loss of Bonner had ignited something deeper in the hearts of the humans. Despite the odds, despite the overwhelming power of the Galactic Empire, the humans were still standing, and as the battle continued, one thing became clear: this war was far from over. The Empire had underestimated humanity's resolve, and they were about to learn a valuable lesson. Humans were not so easily defeated. The battle for Earth had raged on for days, and humanity was now facing its darkest hour. The alien forces, relentless and unyielding, had nearly drained Earth's precious oceans. Only a small sliver of water remained, and the Galactic Empire had shown no signs of relenting. The human resistance, though battered and bruised, had one final card to play: a weapon so powerful it could stop the Empire in its tracks. But the risks were monumental, and the mission would require a bravery few could muster. As the Earth's last defense line, Captain Jason Hunter and his team gathered for what they all knew could be their final mission. The humans had developed a weapon that could turn the tide of the war, an EMP device powerful enough to disable the Galactic Empire's artificial intelligence systems. If the EMP worked, it could bring the entire fleet to a halt, shutting down the enemy's war machines and giving Earth a fighting chance. But to deploy the EMP, they would have to infiltrate the heart of the alien flagship, a nearly impossible task. The tension was unbearable. Every soldier, every scientist, every engineer knew the stakes. There was no turning back now. As they prepared for what could be a one-way mission, their faces were grim, but their resolve was unshakable. It was humanity's last stand, and they had no choice but to fight for their survival. In the dimly lit war room aboard their command ship, Captain Hunter addressed his crew. "This is it. We go in, we deploy the EMP, and we pray that it works. But know this is a one-way trip. We may not make it back, but we're fighting for Earth. We're fighting for our families. We're fighting for our future. We are humanity's last hope." The room was silent, save for the hum of the ship's engines. Each person in that room had their own reason for being there, some for their families, some for their comrades, and others simply because they couldn't stand by and watch the Empire destroy everything they loved. It was a mixture of fear, courage, and the unyielding human will to survive. Captain Hunter turned to his crew, his voice softer now. "We've all come this far together. We've faced impossible odds before, and we've beaten them. We'll do the same now. For Earth." There was no time for further words. The plan was set in motion. The fleet moved out, ready for the final assault. The sky above Earth, once filled with the terror of the alien warships, now seemed oddly still. The human ships, cloaked in stealth, slipped past enemy lines, their movements swift and silent, like ghosts. They were headed straight for the flagship, the heart of the Empire's power. But before they launched their attack, Captain Hunter knew he had one more thing to do. He walked to a private area of the ship and made a video call to his wife. The familiar face of Mary appeared on the screen, her expression a mixture of relief and worry. She had heard the news. She knew what this mission meant. "Jason," she said, her voice trembling, "I don't want to lose you." "I know, Mary," Captain Hunter replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't want to leave you, but I have to do this. We all have to do this. The Empire can't be allowed to take everything. I promise you, I'll come home." Tears welled up in Mary's eyes. She wanted to say more, but the words caught in her throat. Instead, she simply nodded. "Be careful, Jason. Please come back." "I will," he promised, though both of them knew the odds of that happening were slim. "I love you. I love you too." With a final, lingering look, Captain Hunter ended the call. The weight of what he had just promised hung heavy in his heart. He knew he might never see his wife or child again, but he also knew that if they didn't act now, Earth would be lost. It was a sacrifice he was willing to make, and he wasn't alone. His crew stood beside him, ready to face whatever dangers lay ahead. As the humans neared the flagship, the Empire's automated defenses sprang to life. Laser turrets fired at the approaching ships, and swarms of robot drones buzzed through space, their sensors searching for any sign of human activity. The humans' cloaking technology, which had worked so well up until now, was no longer a guarantee. The enemy had adapted, and the fight would be more intense than ever. The human fleet broke through the last line of defense and entered the heart of the enemy flagship. The time for stealth was over. It was time to fight. The EMP device was small but powerful, capable of shutting down the enemy's AI systems and stopping their war machines cold. But it had to be placed directly inside the flagship's core, where the risk of detection was highest. A small team of human soldiers, including Bonner's replacement, Lieutenant Sarah Green, was tasked with infiltrating the flagship. They would be the ones to plant the EMP and give humanity its last chance. Captain Hunter knew the mission was a suicide run, but there was no other choice. He couldn't send anyone else. They were all in this together. As they boarded the flagship, the humans encountered fierce resistance. Robot soldiers, drones, and automated defense systems were everywhere. Each corridor was a battleground, with laser fire lighting up the dark, metallic hallways. The humans fought bravely, using every trick they had learned in previous skirmishes to outmaneuver their mechanical foes. The closer they got to the flagship's core, the more intense the fighting became. The ship's eye-controlled defenses were quick to respond, sending wave after wave of drones to stop the human infiltrators. It was clear that the Empire had no intention of going down without a fight. But despite the overwhelming odds, the human team pressed on. Every step brought them closer to the core, where the EMP device had to be deployed. The humans moved quickly, knowing that every second counted. Captain Hunter led the charge, his heart pounding with every step. They were so close to saving Earth. Finally, they'd reached the core. The massive room was filled with the hum of alien technology, wires and circuits, twisting through the walls like a living organism. Captain Hunter and his team fought off the last of the robotic defenders, and Lieutenant Green moved to plant the EMP device. The moment the device was activated, the room was filled with a sudden, blinding light. A pulse of energy shot through the flagship, and a massive electrical shockwave spread out from the core. The eye-controlled systems, once so powerful and unstoppable, went dark. The robots froze in place, and the fleet began to grind to a halt. The humans had done it. They had disabled the Empire's AI, and their war machines were now useless. The Empire's once mighty fleet was now nothing more than a collection of disabled ships drifting through space. But the victory came at a high cost. The human team had been decimated. Only a few survived the final push, and Captain Hunter stood alone, Staring at the wreckage of the Empire's flagship, he had fulfilled his promise. Earth was saved. But at what cost? As the stars above Earth seemed to glow a little brighter, Captain Hunter knew that humanity's fight was far from over. The Galactic Empire had been defeated, but there would always be new threats, new battles to fight. And humanity, once again, had proven that it would never give up. The war was finally over. The once feared Galactic Empire, so sure of its dominance, had been driven back. The alien fleet, now crippled by the human strategic brilliance and the devastating power of the EMP, retreated in disarray. The heart of the Empire, its advanced AI systems, lay in ruins, leaving the alien forces disorganized and powerless. The stars above Earth no longer seemed as threatening. For the first time in months, the human race could breathe a sigh of relief. But this victory had not come without great cost. Captain Jason Hunter stood on the deck of the command ship, staring out at the battered fleet that was returning home. The survivors of the final battle were few, and the loss of so many brave soldiers weighed heavily on him. Bonner, one of the soldiers who had fought so valiantly, was among those who had perished. His young dream of seeing Earth free from alien oppression had been extinguished, and the hole left by his absence was a constant reminder of the price humanity had paid for this triumph. As the human ships made their way back to Earth, the devastation was visible. The alien bombardments had taken their toll on Earth's cities. The once thriving metropolises now lay in ruins, with buildings reduced to rubble and streets abandoned. The scars of war were everywhere. But amid the destruction, there was also hope. Humanity had survived. Earth had withstood the invasion, and now it would begin to heal. Captain Hunter knew that the victory was bittersweet. He had led his people through the darkest days of their history, but it had come at the expense of so many lives. He thought of his wife, Mary, and their child. He had promised to come home, but the images of Bonner's final moments and the sacrifices made by so many others would stay with him forever. The promise of peace felt fragile, and the weight of leadership seemed even heavier now. As the survivors of the final assault returned to Earth, they were greeted with a hero's welcome. Crowds lined the streets, cheering and celebrating the end of the alien threat. But for those who had fought in the trenches, the victory felt hollow. They had lost comrades, friends, and family. They had seen too much destruction to truly celebrate. For them, the work was only just beginning. The rebuilding of Earth started almost immediately. Governments and military leaders worked together, setting up emergency services and organizing recovery efforts. The human race was determined to rebuild their cities, their lives, and their futures. Yet the scars of the invasion would never be erased. The physical damage to the planet was vast, but the emotional toll was even greater. Captain Hunter was one of the first to return to his home, a small, modest house on the outskirts of a once thriving city. His wife, Mary, was waiting for him, her eyes filled with both relief and sadness. She had known that Jason had done everything he could, but the absence of so many was a heavy burden to carry. The quiet moments they shared, sitting together and holding each other, were precious. They both understood that life would never be the same again, but there was a sense of relief in knowing they had made it through the worst. As the weeks passed, the people of Earth worked tirelessly to restore their way of life. The military forces began training soldiers, preparing for any future threats that might come their way. The scientists who had developed the EMP device worked on improving the technology, knowing that humanity would need every advantage they could get to protect their planet. The world had changed, but one thing was certain: Earth was no longer defenseless. Amid the rebuilding efforts, Captain Hunter met with his fellow leaders and military officers. They discussed the future, how to prevent such an invasion from happening again, and how to ensure Earth's security in the face of potential threats. They had won, but they knew this victory was only temporary. The Galactic Empire had been stopped, but the universe was vast, and Earth had just made its first step onto the galactic stage. It would need to be vigilant, strong, and prepared for whatever came next. The victory celebrations were short-lived. As the people of Earth rejoiced in their newfound freedom, a disturbing new development came to light. While the humans were still recovering from the damage caused by the Empire's invasion, the whispers of a new and even more powerful force began to spread. The Galactic Empire may have been defeated, but they were not the only threat in the universe. In a small, hidden room beneath the surface of Earth's most secure military base, a group of scientists and intelligence officers reviewed the data gathered from the remnants of the Empire's war machines. What they discovered sent a chill down their spines. A more powerful empire, one far beyond the reach of the Galactic Empire, had taken notice of humanity's resistance. This new empire had been watching Earth's struggle, and now they were preparing to strike. The leaders of Earth's defense forces were immediately notified. There were no details about this new empire, only vague, unsettling reports of a race even more advanced than the Galactic Empire. The humans had barely survived their first encounter with extraterrestrial invaders, and now they would have to face a force that could be far more dangerous. As the leaders of Earth debated their next move, the camera zoomed in on Captain Hunter, his face grim with the weight of the news. He had promised his wife and child that he would return to them, but the reality of the universe was far more complex than he had imagined. The victory they had fought so hard for was only the beginning. The galaxy was full of threats, and Earth was no longer a quiet, hidden world. The resistance they had sparked had made waves across the stars, and now those waves were crashing back on them. The closing scene shifted to a remote corner of the galaxy, where the new empire, dark and foreboding, watched Earth's victory unfold. Its leader, cloaked in shadow, spoke to their generals. The humans have proven themselves more resilient than expected. The leader said, their voice cold and calculating. Prepare for war. The Earth will fall before us. Back on Earth, life continued, but with an undeniable sense of unease. The people celebrated their hard-won freedom, but they knew the peace would not last. The victory had been hard-earned, and the cost had been immense. Yet, as the celebrations continued, there was a growing sense that the galaxy's larger, more dangerous forces were now aware of Earth, and they would not be so easy to defeat. The final words of the story echoed in the minds of all who had witnessed Earth's struggle. Humanity's battle has just begun. The journey was far from over. The universe was vast, and Earth had only just begun to realize the scope of the challenges that lay ahead. But one thing was certain: humanity had shown its strength, and no matter the odds, they would never back down.